Well, folks, it sure seems like KTM stepped in it this time because apparently they are on the verge of getting sold that they're doing so badly, or at least that's what some people claim. So we're going to talk about what the hell is going on over at KTM and whether or not it's really as bad as everybody's making it out to be. This video is powered by Flying Eyes. Whether I'm riding on-road or off, they're my choice of sunglasses thanks to their thin and flexible stems, so I can ride for hours with no pressure points. Click that link down in the description below and use the code SC10 for 10% off your order. Man, it really does seem like it's a tough time to be in the motorcycling industry, doesn't it? Not only is Harley-Davidson having their issues, their sales are down 39% to dealerships, and that is signaling the end times. No? Well, maybe not. But in the same breath, we hear about KTM that is apparently doing so badly that some people in the industry are starting to question whether or not Pure Mobility Group, the parent company, is going to sell off KTM. And who might buy KTM? Who would want to buy this orange albatross that apparently is circling the drain? So let's start as we usually do by breaking down what's actually going on. So what is going on over in Austria? Well, it's kind of a complicated story, and the first thing to remember is that KTM is owned by a company called Pure Mobility Group. Pure Mobility AG, I think, is the actual designation, but I'm just going to call them Pure for the sake of simplicity because, I don't know, it's Pure Mobility Group, 3 words. Why use 3 when 1 will do? But as we talked about in that Harley video I made a couple of weeks ago at this point, KTM failed to meet its financial guidance, and they haven't been able to update when they're going to be able to put out new ones. And my understanding of that situation is limited. I don't know what financial guidance means. My guess is that is what Pure wants KTM to do, and KTM can't meet those metrics. That would be my guess. And there's a lot of things that KTM are laying the blame on. First and foremost is the lack of interest in major markets. So that would be America and Europe. But interestingly enough, KTM also is laying the blame on bicycles, because during the pandemic, bicycling, more so than motorcycling, bicycling exploded. It everybody suddenly became a downhill bike champion. They were going mountain biking, they were going road biking. Everybody was on 2 wheels and not motorized 2 wheels. And you still kind of see the remnants of this. For example, I get emails every day from some new Chinese company that is branding a new push bike, electric assist push bike, and it's like they're all the same. And the crazy thing is those bikes are really expensive. They're really, really expensive. In some cases, you can get a used R1 for the price of a nice bicycle, which is insane to me. That is absolutely insane. But KTM went hardcore on these bicycles, and the bottom basically fell out of that market. Biking is not nearly as in demand as it was, so they were basically going all in on what was essentially a fad, and as a result, they're just fallen woefully short, and they're strapped for cash. So strapped for cash, in fact, that they're seeking bridge financing in the order of, what is that, 9 digits? Over $100 million, somewhere north of $100 million, and that could be anywhere from $100 million to $1 billion, which I know is a gigantic range. But they haven't quoted exactly how much they want. But that is a staggering amount of money. And not only are they seeking bridge financing, but they're laying people off. KTM's workforce has shrunk from 2,300 or something I don't remember exactly what the numbers are, but they're down about 300 people. And I think the last reporting I saw was that KTM was like, yeah, you know, all you guys who are working in the factories, yeah, don't bother coming in till January. So they're like stopping production, and they're starting to do the Harley thing where they're like, okay, we have got to sell what's at dealerships, and then we are going to slowly start replacing the dealership inventory. We're not going to build a ton of motorcycles. And so I imagine they're going to slowly winnow their product line a little bit to just the most successful bikes, and we'll see a little less development. Like the most recent big bike that I can think of that was new was the 890 SMT. And that was kind of like just a stripped down Adventure R with 17s. Yeah, don't expect to see any new bikes from KTM for a hot minute. Although I suppose we are getting the RC8C, the street bike, with the, or RC9, I don't know exactly what they're calling it. But we are getting that street sport bike. But that kind of already existed, so is it a new bike? Who knows? And like I said, people are speculating that these financial troubles are so bad that KTM could potentially be sold off. And the question is, who would buy KTM? So we'll start there before I dive into whether or not I think that's actually going to happen. Who are the two companies that I think are most likely to purchase KTM? One is Bajaj. Bajaj is enormous. They are one of the biggest bike, motorcycle, moped, two-wheeled motorized vehicle producers on the planet. And they're based out of India, which makes sense then that they're so huge. And Bajaj already makes the 390 motors, so they have experience with KTM products. The reason I don't think Bajaj would jump at that, though, is they don't really have a massive flagship, super high-powered power sports brand under their umbrella. And you might think, well, then they'd buy KTM just to make it. Well, maybe. I don't know that they would have the experience to support something like that, especially to support like a race team in MotoGP. The other option would be CF Moto and their parent company, which I believe is QJ. I'll have it down below. But the parent company is CF Moto. I could see them easily buying KTM. Why? Because they have experience with really nice bikes, and believe it or not, they have improved the quality control of KTMs, because that's one of the things that people point to here in the States is why they're not going to get a KTM. And a lot of it comes down to the 890 motor. We'll talk about that in a second too. But anyway, they make the LC8Cs in China, and so they have experience with high-powered KTMs, and they have the license for the 1290 motor. So they have a lot of experience with that brand. Now, I mentioned the 890 motor. I think that's one of the main reasons why people here in the States stay away from KTM. They're afraid of the reliability of those bikes. And it makes sense. There have been a lot of reports of cam issues, excessive cam wear on those bikes. And if your cams go, your motor goes. And if your motor goes, it turns into a two-wheeled paperweight. You know, you could add pedals and just pedal it down the road, but that wouldn't be fun. And a lot of people are laying that as the anchor that's sitting around KTM's neck. And honestly, I really don't think so. Because think about this. Remember when the RS660 first came out? And there were those reports of RS660 motors exploding. There was even that guy here in Austin who had his case basically break because the conrods went and his motor imploded. Everybody made that out like it was some massive, widespread issue, and you cannot get a 660. And the reality is it was like 300 affected motors because they were scaling up this new product. They sourced some bad metal, and hence the motors imploded. I'm basically thinking that's what happened here with the 890s, is KTM was trying to get those motors out really, really quickly to fill up demand. And as a result, the cams they sourced, the metal to make the cams, was not as high quality as it needed to be. And honestly, that has since been fixed, to my knowledge. Once they moved the production to China, things actually got better. They didn't get worse. No matter what anybody claims, the Chinese motors are actually high quality. CF Moto builds high quality motors. They have been in the game for almost 50 years now. But digressions aside, I really don't think KTM would ever be sold. I really don't think that Pure would separate with KTM, because honestly, I think KTM's problems are temporary. I think the idea of them being sold off is way overblown. I really do. First of all, think about this. Pure owns KTM, KTM owns Husqvarna, but to my understanding, Pure and KTM are part owners of GasGas and part owners of MV Agusta. So the fact that GasGas is essentially red KTM, but they're part owned by KTM, who gets the rights to GasGas? Does KTM get GasGas on the weekends and Pure get them on weekdays? Or what happens to all those bikes that are functionally the same? You know? Same thing with MV Agusta. You know, KTM is basically running MV Agusta's warranty and parts network, but they're letting MV do their thing. Pure would definitely just keep MV Agusta there. It's a little bit simpler. But I'd see, honestly, I'd see KTM, before they get sold, dumping GasGas as a brand. I still think that would be a very, very difficult ask, because the main bikes in GasGas's lineup that are getting sold right now are the 690s, at least that I'm aware of. And those 690s are literally the smc-r and the Enduro-R. They're just cheaper versions of it. And I was actually talking with somebody who, I can't get into super specifics here, but I was in contact with somebody at a dealership that is involved with KTM products. And they were saying that there's media going around from KTM and Pure that's basically like, look, this is temporary. All this stuff, it's really overblown, and we're getting it sorted. Now, obviously, they were gonna say that anyway, because nobody wants to admit to a sinking ship, because if they do, all the dealers are just gonna dump KTM products, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But this really does feel like a transitory problem, because when you look at KTM, they actually did really, really well coming out of the pandemic. Their brand adoption has spread a lot. There's more KTMs on the road now than there were previously. So despite all these issues, the brand itself is healthy. I think they just made a mistake. So what do I expect to see from KTM? Well, first of all, I expect to see no new models come out, at least for the next 2 years. I think that we're not going to see anything new from the brand unless they're well into R&D on some other projects. I don't expect to see renewed investment in any of that. If I was at GasGas, I might be a little bit worried about my job. I would expect GasGas as a brand to be ejected, sent right out the airlock the second things start getting real bad. And that's when you can expect a lot more doomsday talk for me, is if you see KTM start shedding brands. If GasGas gets, you know, blasted into outer space, then things are real bad. I would also expect to see more bikes in KTM's line start to be built, not in Austria, but in China. That actually kind of bums me out a little bit, because I'm really proud of the fact that my 690 is built in Austria. I like that mine is an Austrian motorcycle. I have the VIN code that says it's Austrian, and I like that. I'm actually in two minds about it, because I think if it was built by CF Moto, the motor might be more reliable, but and it probably wouldn't have the overheating issue that mine does. But I still like the fact that it's an Austrian bike, you know what I mean? And I really wouldn't want a Chinese Super Duke. If I'm buying a Super Duke, I want it to be Austrian. You know what I mean? I also think that we're going to see a lot more push away from the dirt bike people, because they've already got that crowd. And I think we're going to see a lot more investment in trying to capture the street rider. So expect to see a lot of KTM street bike advertising. But that's where I'm going to pass this one off to you. What do you guys think? Where do you land on this KTM issue? Are you a KTM rider? Are you one who's worried about the reliability of KTM motors because of the issues with the 890 and the LCHC and the cam problems? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later.